and just taking a look at the baseball schedule, and they will begin, as they usually do, down south. Their first 6 games will be in Lake Charles, Louisiana, 3-game set against the McNeese State, and then they go to South Florida in Tampa for the final weekend in February. Their home opener will be at Joe Nathan Field on March 2nd, weather permitting. There could be a foot of snow on the ground. Who knows? But
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But then they take another trip down south to Western Carolina and Cullowhee, North Carolina, and then back up north to Fordham, then back down south for a weekend series against Old Dominion down in Norfolk, Virginia, and then finally a nice long homestand on the day starting the day before St. Patrick's Day, March 16th. That will be a midweek game, a Wednesday game against Iona, and America East kicks in the day after St. Patrick's Day with a 3-game set against UMass Lowell. So America East, it springs into action kind of early, and then, of course, continues all the way to the 3rd week in May. This is great. They finish their regular season home against NJIT.
I agree. You really couldn't script it better than that. You know, it's a great callback, I think, to last season, where it wasn't, the last series of the week, but it was the last home series between these two teams. And we remember how heated that was, ultimately carrying into the conference tournament. And yeah, we spoke with the guys. There's still a lot of bad blood, between both of these teams, especially on the Stony Brook side, feeling like, it should have been them going on the NCAA to the NCAA tournament. And thankfully, I'll say this, I'm really happy that the America East went back and it booked its tournament schedule from Wednesdays to Saturdays with a Sunday as a possible fill-in date. That I thought that was the first thing I checked for in the schedule. So when I saw that, I was able to take a deep breath, because I feel like a lot of these players did, and realized, all right, we're not going to get screwed out of this one like we were last time.
Well, the most important thing is lesson learned.
Yeah.
Yeah, finally somebody's paying attention, saying, okay, we're not going to let that happen again.
Agreed.
Yeah, and Seawolves, that was because, hey, their chances were good as long as they kept dragging it out that they were going to get past NJIT. I mean, this is, like I said, budding rivalry now, and it's starting to spill over, I think, to the other sports.
Oh, it's already spilled over. Yeah. There's no question of that. But,
but
baseball, there's no level. Yeah. It's definitely uncomparable. And, it goes back again to, just, I think it was well with NGIT. They were a formidable challenge for sure, because those were tight games, tighter than usual than a lot of the Stony Brook baseball games were, especially at the start of the conference season. So it's not like, you got a really bad team trying to bring down a good team. These are still 2 good teams, and 2 teams I project that are probably going to be among the top of the coaches' polls once those are released next year. But, there's definitely a lot of bad blood carrying over, and it's going to be interesting too, seeing what the playoff scenarios are like, because odds are they're both probably going to be vying for that top spot come May 19th. And, we saw how much bad blood there was already. It's probably going to get exacerbated even more, that weekend.
Well, they also will be in Newark at NJIT on April 29th, April 30th, and May 1st. So they will have played each other once before when they finally get to the final regular season weekend. But the important
probably find something new to beef about.
Yes. And nice thing about it, though, is because NJIT is based in Newark, if we don't have lacrosse in the way, we might be able to get a game in there.
Right.
But speaking of which, lacrosse is not announced, have they?
No,
you're not.
But same look again at baseball, rest of the baseball schedule. To me, I feel like this non-conference slate is more winnable than usual, and it's a mix of just how good this team has been over the past couple years. But also, I just looked at the names that stand out, and really, to me, the only 2 that really caught my eye were, number 1, Old Dominion. They ranked 14th last season overall. They had a great season last year, 44-16, went pretty far in the conference tournament. That's going to be a great test for the Seawolves on March 11th through March 13th, weather permitting, obviously. But, going out there for a 3-game series, it's going to be interesting if they could produce a game similarly to the series they had against Clemson a couple seasons ago, where they lost all three, but they were still really tight games. They're only 1 or 2 run games, and had a pitch or a hit gone a different way, you're looking at Stony Brook pulling off an upset like that. And the other game I'll talk about too is against Fairfield, who had a great 2020 season, finished 39-5 overall.
So again, setting up a nice. Well, I remember talking to Matt Sink about this many years ago, and over the years, and you get a feel for it over time naturally, and he's been doing it for 30. But setting up the non-conference schedule is a delicate balance, particularly in baseball, because what you don't want to see happen is them dig themselves too deep a hole. Again, it's all about the conference schedule in the America East in every sport. Okay, they're not sending out large bids, and you got to win your conference in order to get to the NCAA. And I don't care how good you are otherwise. 2011 was a perfect example. The Seawolves were basically actually one pitcher better than the College World Series team, but got knocked out in the conference tournament, and their season was done. They had Nick Tropiano, and he was the only one who got a win in that conference tournament. So that's the reality. And but there have been years in the past where Coach Sink has said that, sometimes I think I might have scheduled too tough a non-conference schedule, because no matter who you play, if you're going into the conference schedule with, a really bad, like 3-8 record or something like that, your confidence level still isn't that high. And he thinks about that and the way he balances his schedule. And, he schedules games that, number one, you have to find people to play you. And number two, you got to have warm weather facilities wherever you can. So Lake Charles, Louisiana, and Tampa, Florida are your first 2 road locations. But you're also looking at teams that you can compete with and that aren't going to, steamroll you. And I think that he's found that here, but he's got some tough ones. Like you said, Old Dominion is no joke.
That's their toughest for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, McNeese State last time, these two teams only faced off once back in 2017, and McNeese State won 18-2. So.
Right. So you got to be careful with them, too. But they invited them back, which is good.
Let's talk about the two for a little bit. Matt Sink starting his 32nd year as Stony Brook head coach, manager, whatever they like.
Yeah.
An impressive run from him, for sure. And the fact that he's been consistently great throughout.
The one thing that always stood out with all of us who followed him from the beginning, 1991, is that he won at the D3 level, he won at the D2 level, and he definitely won at the D1 level. So every time the program upgraded, it kept pace. That was not so easy for a lot of the other programs to do when they were transitioning into D1. I mean, a lot of the programs got beat up pretty good, but not the baseball team. And the baseball team got into competing with the big name schools very quickly, and of course, culminating in the 2012 College World Series run, which they've yet to duplicate. But the bottom line is, as I keep saying, is you go 1 year to the next among the 8 participants in the College World Series, and maybe 1 or 2 carry over from the year before, largely because of the draft. Okay, you're going to get, if your team is good, it's going to get gutted by the Major League Baseball first year player draft. So if you're loaded, you got people behind you, you got freshmen behind you to take over for the juniors, that's great, but not everybody does, and not everybody can do that consistently, even the teams with multiple national championships. But the most important thing here is that the Seawolves are on an upswing, and they're building up, and I think that the confidence level with this team is pretty high going into this season, and we're going to be, I think, very happy with the results. I think we're going to have a lot of fun doing these games. Agreed.
And softball, I think, is right there with them. Honestly, looking at 2 schedules of the 2, I felt softball was probably the harder of the 2, even though I think the toughest opponent between both teams is going to be 14th ranked Old Dominion. And it's funny, too, because even with softball, they got 6 opponents who are in the top 70 of RPI. Stony Brook's in the top 80. So there's a lot of teams that are, right there with the Seawolves, and it's going to be a great test for them in that sense to, get a feel for, how much they improved from last season. Can they continue to keep climbing up the ranks? Can they continue to keep developing these players? As well as, honestly, to me, the biggest thing I think is just getting them better prepared to compete against UMBC. Because to me, the Retrievers and the Seawolves are going to be the two favorites to make it to the America East tournament, considering they've done it the past 2-3 seasons, and it's gone the Retrievers' way in each season. So, it's going to be interesting for sure, seeing a schedule where it's like, all right, instead of seeing Stony Brook versus UMBC 3 or 4 times a season, you're getting it about 12 to 15 times.
Well, the softball season, in softball, they have tournaments, and it will begin with the Florida International Tournament. They will be the host school, and it will include Drexel, South Dakota, Brown, and South Dakota. In addition, South Dakota again, they'll face them twice. In addition to Stony Brook as a participant, and that will begin last weekend in February. Now, the following weekend, they go to San Diego for the San Diego Classic. That features San Diego, of course, Utah State, Yale, and Long Beach State and San Diego State. So that's a pretty good matchup there. Then they go to South Florida, USF, and South Florida being the host, UMass, Ohio State, and Army in addition. And then finally, they come back up north, and they take on Fordham in a Wednesday game, and then another tournament, Rutgers. But this one's going to be in Piscataway, New Jersey. Fairfield, Drexel, St. Peter's, and Holy Cross. They don't see the light of day at home. They've got Hofstra, Fairfield, and St. John's on the road. Well, sort of on the road. They're local. But they're not at University Field until March 31st, a Thursday doubleheader against Sacred Heart. And then a couple of days later, they get ready to take on Maine for 3 games, a doubleheader on Saturday and a single game on Sunday, and the America East kicks in. But they're still not done with non-conference because they sneak in games at St. John's, Seton Hall, and Providence. Big East week, essentially, the first week in April. And then UMBC with a doubleheader. This is a really weird setup here because UMBC is a doubleheader on Wednesday, April 13th, and that's it. And then they've got Binghamton for 3 games over the weekend. But how does this work? Because they're at UMBC for that doubleheader, and then they get UMBC for a single game on a Wednesday, April 27th, and that's it. That's a really weird setup there. I'm wondering if there's something missing. But anyway, that's where they stand. And then Albany for 3 games, UMass Lowell for 3 games, and the America East Conference, of course, starts a week before the men do. Actually, 2 weeks before, May 11th through May 14th. And the winner, of course, advances to the NCAA tournament. Last time they both went the same year, I believe, was 2008, when they both went to Arizona State.
Yeah, it's been a while for Stony Brook softball. And they've been close the past couple seasons.
But that's when both baseball and softball went.
Yeah.
And they went to the same location. I remember Jeff Bernstein did the softball games at Arizona State, and then the following week I did the baseball games. That was interesting.
Yeah, and it still is too, because again, both these teams, past few seasons, they've still been good, good, especially in America East. The men's team being really good, going on to several tournament appearances, following that historic 2012 run. Softball hasn't really seen the same success in the postseason, despite playing pretty good during the regular season over the past several years. Their best shot was back in 2020, where they started, 14, and it was about 13, 14 games on the road in tournaments, and they went 10-4. So, before everything got shut down. So, it's going to be interesting seeing this team. They've been close, but they haven't been able to clinch it. And for both of these teams, it's going to be interesting seeing who steps up. No Chris Hamilton, no Jared Milch for baseball, no Melissa Roderick for softball. So you're going to be seeing new aces out there as well as new sluggers for these teams.
And still, both teams are picked to finish high in the conference, and you can't really rule them out in either case. So, again, lots of fun coming up in the spring, and we're going to have a lot of overlap, too, because, as we said, the basketball teams have high expectations as well. So we're going to have to pick and choose because being only one frequency, we can't be two places at once. But we'll try to do our best. And, of course, WUSB.FM/sports. The latest schedules, and as soon as we get one approved, we will post it. But and we'll also be ready with our heavy weather gear for when both teams come home finally. But as we said, the softball team, they do not play at home until March 31st. The weather will be slightly better anyway. While the baseball team sneaks in a home game on March 2nd, which, as we said, could still have snow on the ground.